Okay, hello, welcome everyone. So happy to congregate today. I'm just going to go ahead and start by lighting up this Palo Santo. Everything is energetic. So even though I'm doing it here at home behind a screen, it's always about, the intention for creating this sacred space together. I always believe that when women get together, it's like one of the most powerful things that can happen. A lot of magic happens when women congregate. So just taking a moment, just releasing the day, releasing any mental to-dos or responsibilities just for right now. We can take some deep breaths as we settle in the space together. So taking a nice inhale and exhale. Breathing in, breathing out. We'll do one more. And just really feeling your body settled into your space. As you connect to your breath, just feeling the natural inhalation and exhalation. Giving yourself permission to be here together. Turning off the outside world. Noticing your heartbeat. And connecting to your womb. One of the deepest power centers we can connect to in our bodies. And just take a moment, tune into how you feel at this time. Just doing a nice little check-in with your energy. Maybe noticing any emotions that have been passed over this past week that want to surface at this time. And then just connecting to your intention for being here today. Taking a moment, feeling gratitude for bringing yourself here and sharing in this space together. I really do love the power that we hold as a community. So when you're ready, you can gently blink open your eyes. Okay, great. Could just be like in that meditative state forever, especially like a day like today. And just, I'm sure you're all feeling just so many full moon vibes. Oh my gosh. Um, what we feel is real. Sometimes just kind of living in this kind of world, we are used to pushing down or just brushing off those intuitive feelings that we get. And this here today, what we're gonna really dive into is, the power behind our intuition. And that is basically the driving life force behind a woman's nature, behind our wild nature, behind the feminine. So before we get into all of that, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Venus. I am a transformational teacher and healer and soul mentor. And I've been running women's circles and workshops for like over the past 6 years. This is really my passion, truly, truly my passion, because not only is it healing for me, I feel like I'm reclaiming a lot of parts of myself that have been severed, familial wise, cultural wise, but also really being able to share in the wisdom that other women hold, that we all hold as women, really sharing that energy together. I can't emphasize enough just how magical it is. And so doing this particular thing around the inner critic, I think, is just something that holds so much power over us. It could feel like overpowering at times, but knowing that it is also a natural part of our psyche, in the way that our shadow side, our inner critic, can really show us our worth and our value and what our hidden talents and gifts are. And it may not seem like that superficially, but there is a purpose, and she does operate in our cycle, a particular part of our cycle, for a reason. And so just kind of a little overview of what we're going to get into. So we're going to really, I'm going to talk about this inner critic and the relationship between the inner critic and the world that we live in, right? We live in a hyper masculine society. What it means to live with feminine consciousness in a masculine society. We're going to talk about how this full moon is bringing out the inner critic, particularly this one, but how there's also room for transformation. There's possibility for transformation and growth at this time, just energetically, cosmically. So it's a really good time to dive deep into this. How to manage your inner critic with your cycle. And then we're going to learn what her sacred role is and how she is really your ally in connecting you to your soul's truth and calling. So it's kind of a lot of information. So I'm going to try to take as many pauses as possible. And so I'm just going to jump right in. So we are living in a hyper masculine world, right? So what does this mean? First, I just want to emphasize that the masculine is not a bad thing. We all have a masculine side, we all have a feminine side. This is not about gender. It's just about the qualities we inherit. But we're living in a hyper masculinized world. So it's just the overwhelm of all of these, all of it, what that means. So there's definitely like a pressure, right, to be overproductive in our society, and our work becomes our identity. It's very common for people to separate who they are from their work. I personally believe it's something that, we're all where we're supposed to be, but to truly connect to something that makes you feel alive, it's like, why do something that makes you kind of like, that sucks the soul out of you? Nobody really wants to do that and then go to their other side and be like, okay, now I feel better. It's like, we need to do something about that. So hopefully this will kind of create some clarity around that. So yeah, in the masculine world, there's definitely an emphasis on winning, right? We have to win. There's a competitive focus in what we're doing all the time. We also live in a very capitalist, consumerist culture. We're in the US, so there's a lot of messaging around expectations and success according to this consumerist capitalist culture that we live in. So we're really driven by value and how we're valued according to what we do and how we do it. And so sometimes we might feel the need to live up to these expectations to prove our worth, but at what expense, right? At a soul-sucking expense sometimes. And so this does push us beyond the limits, right? We'll just continue to go past our mental, emotional, and physical means in order to be seen, to feel accepted, and to do our part in society. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's draining of life force energy. And I'm not here to make us feel bad. It's really just about being conscious of what we're doing with our energy and how we have the support to make the changes we need at this time. So if you're looking for deep healing of old traumas and wounds and patterning, this is literally the time that we're living in right now, where it is possible to make those changes. It's a very exciting time. Also, being in this hypermasculine world, there's definitely an emphasis on the mental, on the logical, and on the intellectual side of our being, which we definitely need again, right? We definitely need to use our mind. We definitely, it's helpful to be logical, to be organized, to make sure we've got our PowerPoints. I mean, I'm looking at my PowerPoints right now, but it's excessive. If we're living in that energy day in and day out, it's like you're being run like a machine. You're only really half present. We're not fully embodied. We're living from the shoulders up. And you can see it in people's postures. You can see it in the way when you meet somebody, it's like they're not really fully there, and sometimes you might not be fully there, right? And again, it's just we're kind of put through this system. We're being wrung out of any sense of our senses, our actual primal senses, being sensual. We're disconnected from our body and our feelings, from our emotions, right? So this is the embodied wisdom, which is what the feminine consciousness is all about. It's being connected to our body, to our wisdom. That is another part of wisdom. It's not just the mind, it's the body too. And I do want to just kind of make sure that everyone is welcome to chime in the chat if there's anything that comes up for you as we're talking. Feel free to share any thoughts, because I believe, that helps us to gain a deeper wisdom, when we can share. So feminine consciousness, right? What does that mean? Ultimately, it's the ability to do less and receive more. And that sounds like completely impossible in the mindset that we live in this Western culture, right? It's completely the opposite. It's like, nope, you gotta like fake it till you make it. You gotta run yourself into the ground, go hard or go home. And it's just like, oh my God. The feminine is completely the opposite, where it's like, no, we're gonna slow down. We're gonna make time to rest. We're actually gonna dive into our intuitive nature. It's not about trying to figure it out all the time. And this is a really hard one to come to terms with, again, because we've all been conditioned to think you have to, figure it out all the time. You have to fix the problem. You just, it kind of, it puts you in a spin, right? It could put us in a spin when sometimes you're really not supposed to figure it out, and it just becomes very exhausting. It becomes like, it starts to turn into something like there's something wrong with you if you can't figure it out, or that it's your fault, or that you're to blame. And, this is what's triggering the inner critic, right? And again, that relationship between this hypermasculine world, our inner critic, and then ultimately our body wisdom. There is a tension that is happening. But we're going to get into how all of this really is playing in your favor and for your highest good. It's just needing to be conscious around it, needing to know that there's more potential. You can open up more potential when you're conscious about what is happening. So being in the unknown is something I've grown to really love, because it makes me feel more at ease to know that this is what the mystery is all about. Life's mystery. And so just feeling that you don't have to figure out whatever it is, that life circumstance, that like work situation, that issue between, you and this person and that person, or whatever big life decision, you don't have to figure it out right now. And the more that we can sit in the unknown, and know it's the hardest thing to do. It's like literally undoing so much of this like wiring and conditioning, patterning. But again, the moment you let go, the more you start to really like unravel and continue to find like actually an answer when you don't. And we've all like come to that, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna not think about that thing. It's on the tip of my tongue or right at the edge of my brain. And once you just let it go, it like comes to you, right? It's the same thing, but kind of in a bigger context of like how you navigate your life. Being able to then revel in the mysteries of life. And, I really want that to land, because when you can connect to that concept of like, okay, it's not my responsibility. It's not all on me. Like, what do you sense in your body? I do just want to like pose that right now. How does that feel in your body when you're giving yourself that permission to not figure it out and that it's not necessary? How does that feel? Feel free to share in the chat what may be coming up for you, because that is literally like what could be missing from a lot of our day to day. Yeah, ease. Completely. Relief and softness. Oh my, that sounds so nice. Release. Mm-hmm. How healing is that? That we're already on the path to healing just by telling yourself that it's okay. You have to figure it out right now. And that's the beauty of being able to open up yourself to these possibilities, is giving yourself that permission. And this is part of the feminine consciousness, giving yourself that permission to be human, to be imperfect. And you don't need to transcend anything. There's a lot of spiritual practices that there's a lot of spiritual bypassing and a lot of spiritual practices where they're just like, okay, you don't have to be in your body. You can just kind of transcend whatever's there and deal with, you know what I mean? It's like, no, you can actually be in your body and not have to transcend anything and just be with all of it, be with the pain, be with the complexity, be with the unknown, be with what it is that we tend to run away from. And the more that we can have presence with all of that, the more we are able to be in our bodies and to receive that divine intelligence from just simply being here and not having to be more than, or to push through, or to prove, or to do. Sometimes not doing is what needs to be done. Not doing. To be, right? To be. That's a lot of self-love. That's a lot of surrender. And this is what feminine consciousness is all about. And this is what we tend to forget in the world that we live in, unfortunately. So I'm just going to pause right there. Is there anything that anybody wants to share? Anything coming up for you at this time? Just knowing that we have this wisdom within us, and that we live in a world where we're pulled out of our bodies and we're made to think that we are not worthy or good enough when we're not living up to these expectations of having to do more than you're supposed to. It's maddening. It is maddening. Oh my God. And this is just like years and years and years and years of repressing the feminine, of suppressing the feminine, of pushing her down. And this is why you hear things like the feminine mysteries or like the blood mysteries, right? Because this is what all of that is. All of the wisdom and teachings have been pushed down and they've been hidden. But now we're going through a time where we need to revive that. There's a lot of change happening, right, in our collective right now. I believe the pandemic had a lot to do with it. And so we're really feeling our feelings right now, and we can't ignore them anymore. And a lot of that is associated with the feminine, but like just straight up, you know. So the full moon energies at this time are potent. I'm going to be doing like a full moon sound healing after this. I was so excited. So the full moon in general is all about like the culmination of things, the endings, right? The height of illumination, what eclipses do. What the eclipse is going to happen tomorrow. Eclipses are bigger endings and they're permanent. So the eclipse season is really going to show us what is eclipsing out. So we have the full moon is usually about the ending. So what's eclipsing out of your life? And then we're going to have a new moon eclipse, and that's supposed to be really, really, really intense, and a little challenging. And that is like, what are you eclipsing into your life? Because the new moon's about rebirth and beginnings. So it's all about, the full moon tonight, the eclipse is all about letting go of what no longer serves you or serves what your greatest potential is. And there's a lot of questions around like who you really are, right? There's a lot of questions around what you're being called to explore or experience. And essentially your true self is calling at this time, your true self. So leaving behind what is comfortable, what you've been known to operate out of, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. This sometimes goes into past life territory. That's a whole nother conversation, whether or not you believe in it, it's fine. But it's kind of like the old ways of you of behaving, of relating, are being kind of eclipsed out. And so, yeah, the death of the old way of being or relating. So all of this can be bringing in the inner critic right now. I know she could just be like, are you really who you say you are? Are you good enough? You're not doing what you can do. You're not really doing what you say you can do. Are you really who you say you are? I mean, kind of big life questions, right? And like, you are not alone. Like, this is collectively felt, again, in my goddess circles, in my women's circles, like, we are always coming together with the same exact thing going on. It's really bizarre, but also not bizarre. Because that veil is thin in general, where we're all feeling each other and we all have more in common than we even realize. So that is comforting too. But so that inner critic is calling very loud right now, and that's okay. That's okay. So what is the inner critic, right? The inner critic is also your shadow self. It's a toxic, like quote unquote, toxic figure telling you what's wrong with you, right? Yeah, you're not good enough. There's a lot of self-judgment and blame. Your inner critic keeps you small, out of safety and survival, right? It's your little ego versus your healthy ego. And, when we have been used to, playing a certain way that has served us in the past, that no longer plays out the same way, then it means it's time to get rid of that aspect of self, or time to get rid of that relationship, or rid of that job, or whatever life situation that worked before, but just does not work anymore. And that's what it means to kind of go through this death life cycle, is to, respect those energies that no longer serve you, being able to acknowledge, thank you for what you have done for me in the past, but right now, no longer. So, she could be very tough. It could be very, very difficult. But again, it's really important to listen to what she is trying to say. Is she telling you these things that are making you feel bad because maybe this job isn't right for you? Maybe this relationship needs to evolve. Maybe it's time to take more care of yourself. Maybe it's time to prioritize yourself. It is all an up leveling to help you find your soul's path and true calling. And I'm just going to pause here. Is there anything coming up for anyone as we're talking about the inner critic?
I definitely feel like lately that I'm feel like I can hear the inner critic surface, and then I also feel this like wild, like beast woman, like or younger self and exiled part,
Yeah.
just like, like really just like wanting my attention, and so there's like this trying to establish the relationship with these different parts, even though they kind of both have like a fiery energy to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's just it's potent right now.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, Natalie, because archetypically, the inner critic is related to the wild woman, right? And so the wild woman archetype represents all that society is against, basically, right? Again, so she's part of our psyche that has been pushed down and that has been repressed because she represents our wild nature. She represents the anger that has been pushed down for many reasons, right? It could be because, she's giving more than she's receiving. She's trying to live up to other people's expectations. She's trying to maybe be the good girl all the time. And then time and time again, as you go through your cycle, it starts to build, it starts to build, it starts to build. And then finally, she's just like in this sacred rage where it's just like, fuck all of this. I cannot live for others. It's time to live for myself, you know? So yeah, she is there to bring you to your soul's highest path, to get you in soul alignment. She is your truth warrior. She's a truth seeker, and she's going to shake you to wake you up. That is her purpose. And that's kind of what's happening at the eclipse right now. Shaking us up to wake us up. And that's the only time where sometimes we have the ability to listen, right? Where it gets really intense and uncomfortable. That's like, okay, I can't really ignore this anymore. What do I need to look at in my life that I've maybe been ignoring for a long time or that I haven't been able to really come face to face with? So she's really fighting for you, even though it might not feel like it. She is, and she's part of our instinctual nature. I'm really glad you brought that up. Thank you. Um, So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about where she exists in our own cycle, so our menstrual cycle. And you don't have to have a womb. Maybe you've had a hysterectomy. Maybe you're on birth control. Maybe you're postmenopausal or menopausal. We're talking about the energetics of your womb is something that stays with us forever. So we have inner seasons. This particular season that she's associated with is our fall, right? So when you think about the fall, it's like letting go. We start to turn a little inward in the fall. We need to start slowing down. And it's not a less than energy, it's just a different kind of energy, right? This is also the time where we experience PMS. And for a reason, because at this time we are reflecting and we're kind of getting feedback from the rest of our cycle, where how did we show up for ourselves, how did we show up for others, did you not get enough rest, were you overworking overtime, overproductive, You know, did you give more than you had the capacity for? All of this is going to show up in the fall, where your wild woman is, where your inner critic is. And we have the capacity to meet her in this season. We have the capacity. She's really trying to get you to see behind the BS. You know, that is where a lot of that rage comes and the anger comes. You just want to start killing people. You just sort of like, you have no threshold for stress, you know, and it really depends, again, like what has been going on through the rest of your cycle, you know? So it is a time to face yourself. And I do want to just say the most challenging time of the cycle can be the most empowering time. A lot of women feel very empowered at this time because they could just speak the words without thinking twice. And they feel very connected to their realness and their rawness and their vulnerability. It's a potent time to get stuff done. This is also a time of getting super organized in an interesting way, where it's like, okay, suddenly all the little things that you put off in the earlier parts of your cycle just kind of need to get done now. You know, you're like, oh, okay, now I have to clean the house and then run the errands for this, and I got to get all the little details sorted out for so and so. And like, for some reason, you just want to do all the things, and that's normal. Whatever you've like procrastinated on, because it's almost like we're preparing for, you know, the next season in our cycle, which is our bleed, you know, which is ideally you want to just rest and do nothing, right? So it's almost, you're just preparing yourself on some instinctual primal level to really come into the oneness of yourself, which happens at menstruation. The fall is a heightened time of sensitivity. So you could feel like your extra spidey senses could really be like blowing up at this time. You just kind of know what you know, and you don't know why. The veil between your inner and outer worlds get very thin. You're just kind of in this, you know, kind of behind the scenes, and it feels like you just know what's up. There's a different kind of knowing that's growing inside of you. This is why it's such a powerful time. And this is why we have the capacity to meet our inner critic at this time, because things get real. And she has a lot to say. And it's the time to listen and to give her a voice so that you can really get in touch with what it is that needs to be looked at, you know, in all honesty. Like, what inside of us is suffering right now? You know, what is it that needs nurturing? You know, what needs grieving? And living in a hypermasculine world, we always feel like you can never really catch up. And when you tend to yourself and your emotions and your vulnerability, you actually start to feel more in alignment and true to yourself, because it's really not about the outside world. You know, I mean, it is, of course, you know, we do want to operate and interact with society and everything, but if you don't have that deeper relationship with yourself, then what is it all for? It becomes about everybody else, and you neglect yourself. So the purpose of your shadow self, of your inner critic, I mean, she helps to illuminate your needs and your boundaries. You know, where do you need to prioritize yourself, you know, in your cycle, in your relationships? And this full moon is all about relationships. It's all about relationships. Not necessarily that they need to die, but it's maybe how we operate in those relationships. Maybe something needs to be birthed to a whole new level. She also shows us, are we constantly doing for others? You know, and why? Why do we feel like we have to do so much for others? You know, and as women, it's a very natural part of ourselves to want to be of service. It's a beautiful thing. But it's important to ask, why do you do more than you need to? We've all been there, we still sometimes go there, and that's okay. That's what it means to be imperfect, what it means to continue to like surrender to who you are, because when you can see things for as they are, then you can actually start to work through them in a way that feels soul aligned for you. Um, she's there to show us where we need to speak up. Where are we playing small in our life? What is it that you really want for yourself? How do you show up for yourself? Why are you here? The big why. What is your purpose? What is your purpose? That's a huge one. That's not a small one, for sure. But sometimes we have to like maybe reframe what our purpose means. Maybe it's not, I don't know. Maybe you have had envisioned working for like a Fortune 500 company or something, and like, I don't know, maybe you feel like you're supposed to have the house and the dog and the marriage or whatever, right? But really, maybe it's just like connecting to your intuition and showing up for the people that matter for you. Maybe it's something like that, which is very deep, right? Maybe it's not the expectations or the picture that we've grown up with as children, like what the most important things in life are. It's really for us to figure that out for ourselves, what that purpose is. Maybe it's literally like spending more time volunteering, or connecting with other like-minded people and just sharing the same interests, those things that are called hobbies, right? Because they're not like your full-time thing. Maybe it really is about, creating and painting and drawing and sharing that with other people and creating a community like that with other people, because we need that right now, So it's really about shifting the lens on what your purpose is and like what is really valuable for you versus what you've been told. She also shows us what's been repressed, or suppressed, and has taken the form of people pleasing and seeking validation. And this is a lot to really process, but I also think we have that capacity. We have that capacity because this happens every month in our cycle. She shows up every month so that we can process and kind of get to that knowing, that inner knowing. Because again, if you don't figure it out, that's okay. You have other cycles to figure it out. Maybe it's not necessarily figuring it out, but really just kind of letting whatever wisdom needs to emerge or whatever truth needs to emerge for you. It's more really about that than the sense of figuring it out. Yeah, I'm going to pause there. Whew. Anything coming up for anybody? And that's okay if nothing is. Just want to invite that share if it feels right. Let's see, I keep feeling like a snake shedding as you speak. Oh, I love the snake. What a potent symbol, especially in feminine wisdom that has been demonized, actually. The snake has been vilified and demonized, and the snake holds so much wisdom, right? It's about transformation, it's about growth, it's about healing. What is so bad about that? Oh, I think it's because you then have a direct connection to the divine. That little thing where it's like, oh, that means you're really connected to your power. Oh, we don't want that. in a hypermasculine world. No, no, no. So, really all of this is about letting yourself feel more compassion, feel your fire, feeling your aliveness, feeling your belonging in a world that will tell you otherwise. And it's not about focusing on that negative, right? I'm not trying to say, that's what it is all the time. I mean, it is, but it's not really about that. It's really about you just coming back home to yourself and knowing that exists within you and your body, that we have access to. And it's about our soul's evolution and growth. And the more we are connected to it, the more easier life becomes. You stop living for others, or you stop going through the motions. Your inner critic, your wild woman, she's your soul warrior, like hands down. It's really about feeding your soul. It's about nurturing your soul. Mm. So I'm really excited because there's a way to process this. There's a way to dive in deeper with this work. And it calls for community. It calls for sisterhood, because again, when we gather, a lot of wisdom and insight and potential is there. There is a collective fire that we share when we're together. And so we'll be working with the fall season. We'll be working with the wild woman. We'll be working all the archetypes of our cycle. I'm doing the 6-week program, Your Body's the Medicine. And this is exactly what we can get into. And there's going to be other things that we're going to get into that's not listed in the program. Just because like the nature of the feminine is like not necessarily like we're going to do A, B, C, or D. Things will sometimes evolve, and just like whatever's needed for the circle will be there, and I would be honored if you all could join me if this is really calling you, but it's really allowing yourself to deepen your sacred feminine power through your menstrual cycle or your lunar cycle if you don't have a cycle. And we'll be able to develop this divine feminine consciousness, so rest, being able to receive, opening up your psychic and intuitive powers, being in the unknown, really allowing ourselves to feel comfortable in our bodies, having this wisdom. We're going to cultivate this embodied wisdom, this feminine wisdom. Feminine wisdom is embodied wisdom. So it's connecting to our bodies. So connecting to the spiritual gifts and powers of our cycle through the inner seasons, right? So I'm going to be leading guided meditations. There'll be group coaching, circle shares. We're going to have a private Facebook group, journal reflections. There's going to be so much more. We're going to connect to goddess. I'm all about goddess energy because we all have the goddesses within us. This is about claiming our inherent transformative abilities. That's what mythology teaches us, is transformation. And so we're going to be diving into that energy. We're going to reclaim our womb space as guidance, as healing, and a source of love and power. I mean, like, why else would you not want to do this? I don't know. I'm personally really excited because I have done this work. It has changed my life, the way I navigate it. I have worked with other beautiful women and it's changed their lives. And honestly, it's all about the sisterhood. It's about creating that sisterhood and communing together for 6 weeks. We're going to be in this awesome sacred container where it's like we're going to definitely be stepping into another world of altered states of awareness. And we're going to feel like we have the capacity to just like deal with the outside world, because we won't feel like I'm alone or I'm going crazy feeling all the feels right now. We'll have each other to support us. So the portal's open until April 8th. It's a combination of like online and in person, but there's going to be like an online opening ceremony on Thursday, the 11th. Then we're going to meet on Sundays in person with a hybrid component on Sundays from 2 to 4 p.m. And that's starting April 14th. I'm just going to put the link in the chat. And then if anybody has any questions, you're so free to, contact me. This work is truly like healing. It is so necessary, I feel, in the world today. So, I really hope you'll join me. It's super affordable. It's 555 for 6 weeks. There's going to be, let's see, so we're meeting for 6 weeks in person. There's also going to be 2 group coaching classes, a virtual opening ceremony. We're going to have a Facebook group container for us to like check in, and obviously up to you as far as like your capacity to participate, but knowing that that is there for connection and reflection for deeper like insight. And yeah, so any questions or anything that anyone else would like to maybe share right now?
Is there a goddess that you think of that embodies this like this warrior during this time?
Oh my God, there's so many. So I mean, any dark goddess out there. And so when we're talking about dark goddess, it's really about the hidden and the unseen. It's not like bad or evil, again, demonized. So any dark goddess, so there's Lilith is one. She's like she's pretty wild. There's also Kali. Persephone is actually a dark goddess too, even though she's seen as kind of like the maiden in the story, where I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but yeah, she gets pulled into the underworld, and so that's kind of like the dark aspect. So yeah, working with those goddesses could be helpful. Yeah. Well, thank you all again for showing up today. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for you. Yeah, just kind of sit and marinate with your inner critic and just kind of just show her some love. She's really trying to, she's just trying to up level your potential, and just really wanting you to live from the heart and from the soul and from a more embodied place, and not going through the motions anymore. So yeah, great. Thank you so much. So good to connect with all of you. Happy full moon, and I will see you all soon. Thank
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Thank you.